Good evening and welcome to my podcast. I'm Bob Pace, your host, and here we are to fight CPS and stop taking our children. I want to welcome you all, every one of you that found me via Facebook, and I'm broadcast on YouTube, and I'm using the StreamYard application. Now, some of you that do not know what CPS stands for, I'll try to give you a good definition. Now, CPS that I'm talking about is the Child Protection System. The Child Protection System. And each state may have a different name for their CPS. In California, it's CPS, Child Protection Services. In Massachusetts, it's CPS. But in other places like Arizona, it's DCS. And in other states, it's others. But when I say CPS, I'm talking about all the places that deal with the child protection system. And that is where this government entity is supposed to protect our children from neglect and abuse and do family reunification to bring the family together. Because it's been proven that the mother and father of the biological mother and father of the children are the best parents to have the kids with. If there's some hiccups or some things I've done wrong, they can be repaired or fixed. That's not a problem. That's not a problem. I'm here to help you because I care, and I've been fighting CPS for 15 years, and I want to relay what may have worked for me that might work for you. I know what your struggles are. I'm going through the same struggles as you have. Now, there's several ways to interact with this podcast. We have a guest tonight, a co-host. This is my co-host. Let me bring her on. Welcome, Danielle.
Hey, how are you? I finally made it.
Join me. Yes, that is great. Well, to all my listeners out there, I'm just going over the peculiars about how to interact with this podcast. This is a live podcast. Danielle, I forgot what city and state are you from?
Ackworth, Georgia.
Okay, Ackworth, Georgia. So
yes,
she's on as a co-host with me, which is great because then maybe there's things that she can help out too. She has had similar CPS cases too. Now, there's several ways that you can interact with this podcast. One way is you can text a message. You can text a message, and we will receive it on our screen. And all I ask is you put your name and the city and state you're from. And if you're from a country, that's good, because today I received another country today. From Denmark. Denmark was my newest country. So far, I've had Australia, Canada, United Kingdom, Ghana, Mexico, Mozambique, and now Denmark have all text messages about CPS problem they're having in their country. It's worldwide epidemic. There's definitely something fishy with the child protection services out there. But anyway, you can text your question, and we'll try to help you. The other thing that we have is that if you wanted to interact and be a guest on the show with me and Danielle as the host, you can call in at 626-698-0990, and you can be live on the show with us too. And that'd be great for you to share your story and answer your questions. I also want to inform you that if you want to be on the show at a later date, I can have up to 9 people on the show. So if a later date you want to be on, all you have to do is email my producer, Grace at vincentwdavis.com. That's Grace at vincentwdavis.com. She's a great, all you do is email her and tell her you want to be on the show. You want to be on Bob's and Danielle's show. And I'm live from Southern California. She's live from Georgia. So I'm so glad to have you here, and hopefully you'll find something to be helpful. It's
Yeah.
not a really, pleasant thing. But anyway, that being said, that is how you would interact. Now, the person that produces this show, or the person, is the Vincent W. Davis, who has a law firm, Vincent W. Davis and Associates, and I want to thank him for providing this podcast. And you can call in. He says you need help, and you can call in at 888-888-6582. He said he'd help you. He said he'd help you. I will talk about Mr. Davis in a little bit. Um, so basically, I have three rules. I'm not going to give them at the moment because I want to hear what Danielle would like to talk about. And I have topics we can talk about that should cover a lot of the areas. What's on your mind, Danielle? What's the latest?
The latest with mine is so the update with mine was my son was supposed to be home after Easter, and they keep giving after that news story and everything. He's still out in Texas, and I still visit him over video. I've just got done with the visit, as a matter of fact. And I mean, he's doing great. It's just he's not with his family where he needs to be, you know. So, but now it's gotten to where the DFACs, which we call it here in Georgia, DFCS, they're not even communicating with me or my family now. So I don't know what's going to happen from here. So now it's I just don't get how they can give us false information and false hopes and be okay with that. Like, I don't see how they tell us that we're going to be involved in these monthly meetings and everything, and it never happens. And they just keep and it's like they're able to lie to us when if we lie to them, then oh boy, it's, you know what I'm saying? Like if
Yeah.
it happened to where you start talking to them, like say if you let them in your home, but they can lie and get away with it. I don't understand. That's a
Okay,
big
now have you given up your rights to your son?
no. And remember, he is 18. He's 18 too.
Oh, that's right. That's the
Mm-hmm.
one that was
Mm-hmm.
being transferred from Georgia to
Mm-hmm.
Texas that became 18 in the system.
Wow.
He's kind of been
Mm-hmm.
lost.
Yep.
And
And
yes, I do remember that.
I
And
fully believe that they had alternative plans, if you know what I mean, like under the trafficking
has he
push.
asked to be out of CPS's care? Because since he's 18, he can leave CPS.
Well, remember he's autistic and
Oh,
ADHD,
that's right. He's
so
special
that's
needs.
so that falls under that, and that's where the balance, like the where I'm trying to, not me, but where we're trying to balance it out to where it's where does this fall under, if it's under the children or he is an adult, so where's the legalities at, you know, like because they're trying to put it in juvenile and probate, so it's weird.
Well, they
It's a
can't put in if he's 18, he's now
exactly
out of the juvenile court. He
that's
needs to be considered an adult. And if he's an adult with special needs in
mhm,
social services, I need to look that up further because I have not looked up the topic called special need adult children and how social services handles it in Georgia.
right. Right, and that's where
That's-
the I've been hearing about what they call over here in Georgia DBHDD, which is Department of Behavioral Health and Disability or some. It's like but it's DBHDD, and that's what I'm considered, like what I've been told that the adults fall under, because there is such thing as like CPS. There's such thing as APS, which is Adult Protective Services. So if you have a disabled adult that's disabled or whatever, they can and it's like going through a whole CPS case all over again, that somebody could call on you for abuse and neglect as for a disabled adult too. And that's, I mean, nobody's done that to me, but it's just weird how it sucks when it comes to a special needs person, whether they're a child or an adult. And that's what I would love to talk about if there's anybody going out there with that. And you know,
right.
because this
Have you tried to look at the Georgia Department of Behavioral Health and Development Disabilities?
I just started researching that just yesterday. So
Yeah, there
and
is
I'm looking.
supposedly a Department of Behavioral Health and Development Disabilities with the state of Georgia and services for individuals living with developmental disabilities.
Okay, so
And
that
it's
and
called the
then so
DBHDD, offers
yes.
a variety of service to eligible individuals living with development disability to find out whether you or your family members are eligible to receive DD service, and there's certain
And
forms that need to be filled out.
and I did find out that through probate, where the child case started with my son when my son was still a child, DBHDD filed Georgia filed for adult guardianship for my son, and I just found that out, and they're going for guardianship. So now that's another thing I'm going for. I have to file my
Well,
own
you can
petition.
go for guardianship too. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's no reason why you can't. You're the biological mom of your son.
Yeah. And I'm glad that I discovered that, because otherwise I would never have been notified of it or anything. So since I'm
No,
a
no, no. They
nosy
keep
mom,
things hide because
yes,
you know why? I hate
hmm
to say it. It's that money thing.
that's
They're
exactly right.
they're
That's
get money for doing that program from the federal government, and they
hmm
probably get lots of money, and
Oh
they don't
yeah,
want you to hear it, and they want that money,
and that's
and
why they'll
that's
keep
sad.
him out where he's at, and it's sad that
Yeah,
it's all based on money. And here's a child, a boy that's never been away from family, not ever. And and nobody, I never shared with anybody before, but I don't know if I did, but I also have a disabled brother that's in my care that I care for.
oh, okay, okay.
And so
Well,
and he got
that makes you more your home and your capabilities are more positive to getting your son back. And I
right
think what you need to do is you need to file out that form with the state of Georgia, get the ball rolling. And
for
then
the
I hate to
petition.
tell you that horrible word that everybody hates is a lawyer, and
Yeah.
because it
Well, I
costs
mean, I mean, but it's part of our family. And I mean, if people are about fighting for their families and their kids, I mean, they will go to the extreme for that. You'd go to the end.
because I think that a lawyer that would be helpful in there. I'm trying to think what kind of a lawyer would that be? Would that be still a dependency lawyer, a family
Well,
lawyer?
that's where or a because it over here for the like adult guardianship, it falls under the probate court, because they deal with like the guardianship and even the like a temporary guardianship and stuff. Any guardianship or anything that has to do with I think it's conservatorship, everything like that, it goes through probate. So I really
What
don't
kind
know.
of lawyers are they called?
They would be like a state, like an estate planning lawyer, or probably a family lawyer, like you said. Because I really
Yeah, I still think it's a family lawyer
okay, okay,
with a background in what you're saying with the probate and the estate and
okay.
so forth.
Like
But we need to
practicing
get
for guardianship, like
right.
they practice that kind of law, like filing petitions, I guess, like because there's a petition for adult guardianship is what they're saying I have to fill out.
Yeah, there is the petition for adult guardianship. That is true. Where did my thing go that I just pulled up? Wow, it disappeared. Let me see if I can
My
still find
computer's
it.
been acting up today. This it's
Okay. Huh. Um,
because I like still dealing with ICPC, and I did find out that they say the home study passed. Like the home study was great, but I don't see when did they do a home study. Like that's what I was asking my aunt. I was like, when did they do a home study? Like, but I got a message saying that the home study went great, and the last message that I received from DFAX was the caseworker was that the home study went great, and they're getting with each other to get a date for him to come home. And I'm like, and that's been over a month now.
now that is the placement of children, the interstate compact on the placement of children.
Yeah. So the
Okay,
facility
yeah.
he's at, or something to do with Texas, they have to come out here. They have to be part of the decision making of him coming back to Georgia, which is crazy. When Georgia was the sending state that sent him out there, and that, I mean, it's just a whole. I mean, it's like more of a mess is coming up. Like it's just stuff that they've kept hush hush all this time. Just when you're thinking you're right there at it, and everything is going to finally come and be over, it's like they hit you with, and it's like they play games with families, and it's crazy. It's sad. It's very sad.
I agree with you that. Um, I was wondering, we don't seem to have any text messages or anybody calling in. Um, how do you want to? You want me to go over the The 3 rules. How do you feel about those 3 rules that come up with? Do you think they
The
work?
ones I think they do, especially with writing notes, keeping detailed information, keeping yourself up to date. Because there are times in our days that I'm sure, because I mean I'm exhausted. Like with I have my brother and stuff, but I mean I wouldn't stop for nothing. I mean I'm not ever gonna give up on my family, and with keeping a notebook, it keeps you up to date and reminds you, like a reminder of, hey, this is, because there are things that we can forget, and I've been guilty of that myself, and it's in the notebook thing, and then having the backup, because sometimes when you go at this alone, like I did at the beginning, it's I mean I've never been involved in stuff like this, and this is all new to me when all this started. So, and having a lawyer is definite, because there's somebody that studied this field and practiced in it, and they know the legalities and what to do and what not to do. Well, the good ones, the ones that are all about fighting this and to stop it, and the ones that are like the court appointed they gave me, they appointed me, which that was a surprise because I didn't even ask for one, but she didn't do nothing. And I mean, the first court date, when I thought she was really, I was like, man, we got this in the bag, but no. After that court date, I was like, it was like a slap in the face. Like it was crazy, because they were like, all of a sudden, it was like they were a little group, and I wasn't allowed in that group, when I'm the biological mother. Like they knew my son, they knew everything about him, and I was going to be, whatever they can do to keep me out of it, they were going to. And it was
Right.
like, it was kind of like high school, like the little cliques in high school, like peer pressure. And it sucks, because I was like, man, I was reliving my past all over again. Like when I had gotten some trouble, and when all this, I mean, like, it's like I was reliving those, like back in 2011 all over again. Like when all of it,
Right.
and it's crazy, because my son, that's one thing I was always scared, is I didn't want none of my kids to ever be in the system, and never go through what I did. And I tried to teach them to make way better decisions than I've ever made, and then here my son is in a environment that is kind of like a prison. I mean, I've
Yeah.
seen I've seen things when I have to see my son over a video, and that's another thing, and it hurts. It's like, bam, it's, I've seen my kid attacked on video by another person there. I've seen how scared my son is in these visits when and he gets nervous. So when he does like this to his ears, and he puts his arm out like this, and he starts, and at first I thought he was just laughing, like giggling with me, but no, I started noticing behaviors over time. And it's when someone that has done something to him that is, I can't say, like, whether it be inappropriate or whatnot, but I know he gets nervous, and it's like he feels, I don't know what this person or people have done to him out there, because I only see the square part of the screen. I only see what's on this side of the screen in front of me, which is
Right.
him. I don't know what's going on behind the screen, so it sucks. And I've seen people walk by that, I mean, I don't know if that could be them, but it's so funny. And he hadn't done it for like the last month, and then all of a sudden the last 2 or 3 days ago he started doing it again. And I'm like, man. And I just, as a
Well,
parent,
how often do you visit your son right now?
every day, every day, I call it
So you
every day.
see your son every day. That is a
Almost,
blessing.
almost, yes, almost every day.
But
Sometimes
if he's in
they,
Texas and you're in Georgia, how do you see on the Zoom meeting?
yeah, it's on Microsoft Teams.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you have see him every day video.
They said I was only supposed to get 2 hours, but I make it a point to call every day. And if my son's 18, so how can it be only 2 hours when he's an adult, and he calls me? I mean, and he does as well. I call every day, and I talk to him every day. That's mhm.
Good.
So
Good.
I don't know how
Good.
the visitation thing works now with him being an adult, like, I don't know if it's still 2 hours, but
Well,
I
whoever
do.
determines the guardianship will determine the visitation. But right now, your son's still in limbo because he was
Yes.
transferred under the age of 18. He's now
Mhm.
turned 18, and they have to transition him to this other agency, I think, in Georgia.
Yeah, and that's like the legalities of that, like the whole with my son. and his like the what am I saying? Like with him being starting as a child, you know, and then now he's an adult. How are they treating this? Okay, so when it comes to the whole case that they wanted me to do this, and this at like what is it, the adjudication or disposition hearing, that I needed to do during my case plan, which I never got a safety plan or anything. I mean, it's an open-ended piece of paper, you know, and it's got so many. But what is it now that he's 18? And because I asked for, I was holding it off until he turned 18. Like I asked for a continuance and everything because they were having the permanency, and then I don't understand how they could have a post termination hearing if he turned 18. How did they take my rights? I mean, he's an adult. They can't take my rights. I mean, I don't get it.
Yeah.
There's so many open ends with this. It's just, yeah. And my mom dies, and this is, yeah. And then now with the aunt that threw him in the state's hands, she can't even. The newest thing is, with her and the guardianship she had over my daughter is now at stake because she can't even keep up with the terms of her guardianship order that she is under oath to. She has not kept the courts up to date in 3 years, and she's moved and everything, and they cannot contact her. So she's missed a court date or two for my daughter.
Wow.
So that's the newest. This is what I'm facing now, and I'm like, you know, how can someone do this to this kid and then turn around and they have the responsibility of my daughter and they can't even. Yeah, so it's a mess. But it's coming along. It's just it's I mean, it's like it's something new every day.
Now you may want to call directly. Well, of course it's now the weekend, but you may want to call Monday 800-715-4225 and ask for immediate crisis help.
For
And maybe they're 24/7, so they give a number called Georgia's Crisis and Access Line. Now that has nothing to do with the Department of Behavioral Health, but it's the information where they have a crisis line.
Is it for like suicide, mental health?
Well, it's underneath the Georgia Department of Behavioral Health. Let me give you that link and see if you can pull it up here.
Because I know that they are. I know Georgia is very involved with mental health because around here we do have in this state that we do struggle with suicide a lot, and like there's a group called Faces of Suicide. They've actually a lot of parents have taken their lives because of DFAC, CPS, and what they're going through. I have been in contact with several parents that they've lost the other parent because of the stuff that they're going
now. Can you check your private chat and see if you got it?
I just got it. Yes, I did right here.
Okay, if you click that open, you'll take the same page I'm at.
Okay. Community, the one that says community-based services.
Yeah. And at the top, it'll say Georgia Department of Behavioral Health and Development Disabilities.
Yes. Yeah. And then
there's information about 24/7. They have a phone number that you can call after the show or tomorrow.
Okay.
And find out a little bit about what this whole program's about.
And they'll contact. Oh wow! And then they will. Okay, I never seen this, and this is what
I know.
needed,
well, I'm
right?
just trying to tell you that I'm very good.
Oh no, that's awesome.
And
that's awesome because I see group homes, and that's where they were trying to put my son, but they needed a legal caregiver to give consent or a parent, and that's where.
Well, this is what I'm saying. You are his biological mother. You had guardianship with him. It's just in the transition, he turned 18, so they should recognize that and they should help you. Be very careful who you talk to because I don't want it to come into harm by giving away too much information.
Right.
And so if you call that number, just say you're calling about the Georgia Department of Behavioral Health and Development Disabilities.
And that this could also help me with my brother too.
Yeah, and you just say you have a son that turned 18. That's all you do. Don't say their name. And that you want to know the procedure to get them to get some help.
Okay. Yeah. And
then also it basically it tells a lot of stuff there.
Mhm.
There's
Yeah,
adult
I've
physical
never seen
therapy.
this, like, and I've been on, and
Yeah.
yeah, and that's everything. If I can get stuff lined up, like a kinda like a parenting plan, like what I can do for him and offer him when I do go to court about this guardianship, that will be something on the positive side for me that say, "Hey, well, why can't we just send this boy back home? Because she's
Right.
got this, and she can get, because if they're looking out for the best interest of my son, then if I have a game plan for him of what I can off, what I can do in this, I mean, just like before, I mean, it's just that he's an adult. If I'll go ahead and have it set up for him, then that would be a positive on my
Right.
part.
Now
It didn't
there's
make me.
financial support services. There's
I know they
also
have a comp
homes,
waiver. Mm-hmm.
group homes, host homes,
Mm-hmm.
individual direct goods and services, individual support plan,
Mm-hmm.
mobile crisis service, natural
They even have
support
people that
training.
can come out to your house, like the caregivers that
Yeah,
can
they
come
have a
out
lot of
and help
stuff.
you.
They may even help out with you with your brother because your brother's over 18, right?
Yes, he's 37. Yeah. And he's
Right.
physically and mentally, like, the
Well,
thing
this
is,
is
like,
a
my
pretty
son and
big
my.
page, this Georgia
Mhm.
Department of
Oh
Behavioral
yeah,
Health.
I got it up
And
here as a
I think
on my.
it does not look like it's connected with social services.
Uh-uh. No, and that's what I'm trying to get now. Where does social services still have? I guess it's because the guardianship is still open, open case. But that's because
Well,
it's like
it's an
no.
open case that has not been finalized of where he should go next. He's in another state. So we
Right,
need to have his state of origin. His state of origin is Georgia.
Georgia. Right,
You're his
right,
biological mom, and that you want to get adult guardianship of him because he is
hmm
of special needs. He
right,
needs guardianship because he cannot probably do this on his own.
right. And they told me at like the very beginning to get guardianship of my brother, and with my brother, he can't live by himself. My brother can't, but he can make certain life decisions,
Well,
and my son
you can
is.
get guardianship of your brother. You can do that.
And well, guardianship, is it gonna lose certain rights? Like, how can I, like, me having
No,
like
it's
a.
adult guardianship. That means you're the caregiver for that
Okay,
person.
okay,
It's
so it's
more or
not.
less like assisted living.
Okay,
You when people can no longer take needs, they have adult programs.
right.
One of them is assisted living. My sister was in assisted living, and it did not take away things, but tragically, she had a an alcohol problem, and it ruined her esophagus.
Oh,
And so she was maintained alive for 10 or 15 years, suffering. And it was so hard for me to go and visit her
yeah,
and see her
I.
because my sister she was a beautiful, beautiful sister, and she died really way too young. But because she was homeless on the streets and we all were concerned about our own life, my mom and dad did not know the hell to help her. And of course, my mom and dad are gone. But my sister touched me in a lot of ways. She'd always remember my birthday, and she always was excited to see me when I came and visit her.
Mhm.
But she was in a caregiving until she died, and then I got that terrible call that said that your sister had died, and so
Mm.
it was. I knew it was coming because she'd almost look like a vegetable, and it was
Oh
sad.
wow,
She was
yeah.
really pretty and stuff, and they stopped doing physical therapy on her, and she just her body froze up and she was
Oh
deformed.
wow,
Sad.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
my
It
dad.
was
He's got
sad
the
to watch
first
someone
stages of
die that
dementia.
way. And
My
then
dad.
what happened to me in 2015, I had my three children stolen from me by CPS. I mean stolen. They were
Oh
trafficking.
wow,
And they said they were in extreme danger, and they weren't in extreme danger. My
right.
family was not that dysfunctional, but we had a problem.
And every
Every
family
time.
has problems,
Well,
that
yeah, but
that
the problem was is that our in-laws, my wife's side of the family, wanted our children.
right. And
It
that's what
started
I'm
32 years ago because they did not want us to get married.
and
They
that's
didn't
the way
show up
with
at
my
the wedding,
daughters.
and they didn't
Right.
care. And then we had our children and stuff, and they always insisted that our children come out to see them. And all they were doing was fishing and try to persuade them or alienate them from the parents.
And
And it was sad
that's.
because after 5 years of constant harassment by the lay people to CPS, they finally wanted to invade my home, and they used the police to get me. And like a
Oh
fool, I
wow.
believe in the police. I believe in social services. I believe in the CPS. So I believe in government agencies. I believe that we have a good government, and
And
that
and and with the right people, we do, like with the right people in the, I mean, the department, it's who it's the people that make the, because you're not all of them are bad, but there are a good bit that are, they're only out for themselves. And I mean, when they're really
well,
supposed to be looking at reunifying families, and they're not about that at all.
right.
Like the ones that,
Did you hear about the ladies that wore pink T-shirts?
no, what is it?
I had found, this is a horror story, but in 2022, 8
Oh, and that's
social
recent.
workers that work for CPS in Medford, Arizona, through the Department of Child Services, DCS,
Oh wow.
decided to make pink T-shirts, and on the front of the T-shirt it said they're professional kidnappers,
No.
and on the
Oh my
back
god.
it says, "Where are your children?"
Did they do it as a, oh
They
wow.
did it internally as a joke, but word got out, and they were soon fired, all 8 of them.
Wow. And just, wow, that is,
And so, what that tells you, and why they're fired, is the mentality. And I'm not offending social workers out there, because I had one about 4 nights ago. I had one from Maryland, a social
oh
worker,
wow.
on my show for a good 40 minutes that talked. And it was really funny how she was trying to defend what they do in Maryland. And I had spoken to 2 people that were from Maryland that had terrible times with Maryland. I don't think Maryland or any other state, I think all 58 states are corrupt
Mm-hmm.
with the idea of money. I
Well,
think
I'll
what they
tell you,
figured out,
um,
yeah,
I was in a Facebook group called Georgia Parents Against DFACS, DFCS, and the caseworkers that are part of my particular case, which I'm pretty sure there's other parents in that group, they joined the group, and they are social workers, and but when the group, I think, I don't, it was someone in the group called them out. One of the caseworkers removed herself, but there's still part of this group, and that's just, I mean, that's just fishing for information. When these people, we should have a group to be able to vent in, our support groups to keep us, we can help each other out. We're parents. What is their business doing in a group like that? When it says, if they, I mean, and it clearly says on these caseworkers' profile that they work for the Department of Family and Children's Services, but they're part of a group that, and I'm pretty sure there's more in that group. I just thought it was so funny that as soon as they see it on so they are all over Facebook searching, if any parent out there is involved with these groups, I mean, with Facebook, just know that if you have an open CPS case, they are all over social media checking it out, that is a big, and they will get into wherever. And that's how I know that there's this particular one that's involved in my case, that she's all about causing drama that's not necessary, because she would have removed herself from this group if that was the case. I mean, but the other lady did. And I just think that's wrong. Like, you can't, that's wrong. I mean,
yeah,
that's and I mean, I'm glad that because I told the one of the people, I said, they are over my case. And I said, because I went in and searched their just to see who was in members, and I just thought that was weird, and that's wrong. That is so wrong. I mean, and they could falsify information in a court that could be held against, and that's just messed up. Like, don't.
right.
That's the weak end of things. That shows how weak they are. They really are, if they got to use ammo like that
Now,
just to try to prove a case.
we all are not born with a manual or a handbook of how the
No.
CPS. I mean, when you're in high school and then as you went to college, whatever, I don't think any of us was thinking about what is CPS, how they work, what kind of a
Right.
social, or how social service works.
But
Why?
think
Because
people have
most
morals.
of us probably had a job. We were married or not married, or we were starting a family. We weren't at that level, but it seems like a lot of the low income people are going through this, and it's sad because they're the ones that need the help the most.
Single parents, recovering addicts, um, anybody that's been involved with domestic dispute, stuff, anybody that's in the system as far as on the criminal side, probation, parole, been to prison, like myself, and I'm my son's now 18, and I've never had DFCS in my life. Never. When we did the guardianship back in 2011, it was done, said and done with. And he said that he was leaving it up to the family to decide what to do, me and the family. And now you see that but they're trying to make it look like there's been an open case this whole time. That's what they've tried to do and it's just crazy. Like, they're trying to say I never did my case plan over the last 12 years. I never had a case plan. Like, never. I mean, it was I placed my kids where they're at for a reason, because I did not, that was the whole thing. The state was not going to get my kids, and I asked my family for help.
Well, let me go over the rules here. I want to talk about rule number 1, which is the most important rule, and that's why I call it number 1, is that you need some type of a lawyer to represent you, because CPS is so complicated. I describe CPS like you're Alice in Wonderland. You've fallen in the rabbit hole, and all these doors open up, and you don't know which door to go to. You don't know who.
And there's so many open ends compared to criminal. And like, I've been on the the civil side and then the criminal side. And there's, with the criminal side of court, there's you have to be like specific. And that's where that, like, nunc pro tunc. There's so many room for errors in the civil side, family law side, or juvenile court. There's so much room for errors that they can fix and like get a slap on the wrist and go on their merry way. And it's crazy. But if that was to happen on the criminal side, no, that would be null and void. Like, it would be a void order. And I don't see how
there's definitely, if it's a criminal matter, it's a lot more. You are actually innocent till you're proven guilty.
Right. And it's like,
in family law, you're guilty till you're proven innocent.
Right.
And that's the hard part.
And there's so much room for error that a clerical typo can, that's actually a judicial error, can be just that as a clerical, and they could do a now before then. Like, they could say something happened in the now that was supposed to happen then, and actually put it back then when it never happened that way.
Yeah. So, well, I've had people say I can fight them myself. I'm really good, intelligent. I tried to a year and a half, and I fought them with emails and meetings and phone calls and so forth.
Right.
And all I did is make my case worse and worse and more worse. And it was never a good idea to fight them yourself.
And you know, I've changed my degree in school to Bachelor of I'm getting my degree in human services, social services,
like good,
psychology.
Good.
And they take, and if you go with what you just said, you trusted them, and you thought you could trust them, and it ended up like in my, they manipulate people that way, that it does like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's crazy. You know what? Because they do. And I'm taking like this Monday, I start my introduction to human services. And I just got done taking what was the class? It was some home, and it was talking about the children and what to do, and if you're an advocate and stuff. And then you take psychology during this course of courses as well. And it's like they can use reverse psychology, and they know how to play mind games. And it's crazy. Like, why would you want to? And the more I'm getting into my degree, it's like, wow. I mean,
well, I think that if you want to be a caseworker, you want to be a CPS worker, you should get a major in clinical psychology with a minor in social work.
Right.
And the reason why I'm saying that should be the criteria, because so many social workers, find themselves evaluating parents, evaluating kids. Well, they better be a clinical psychiatrist.
Right.
And if they can prescribe drugs, they can evaluate. But there's too many social workers that think they're clinical psychiatrists, and make those decisions, and that's wrong. That's wrong.
And it's very wrong. And like Georgia, their motto is families first. Okay, well, my case would be the perfect one to describe that. Okay, if they were all about families first, why isn't my son home? Like,
Well, also, I think CPS should emphasize family reunification. Yes,
well,
it's protected
mhm,
from neglect and abuse, and there's a lot of neglect and abuse that goes on. All you have to do is see the horror stories every day.
right,
There's some child being bashed against the wall, some
but
child being strangled in the bathtub, some
right.
child
Oh
not
yeah.
fed, some
They had
child left
that here
abandoned.
the other they had that going on in Georgia, and they John Ossoff, they just had new findings for something like that, and they have discovered even more. And it's so funny that there's a news story that was done April 10th, and the same thing that the department told the John Ossoff in a report was the same email I received saying my case and my concern was satisfactorily resolved when my son's still in Texas. So these missing 400 missing kids that were sex trafficked, and they can prove it, that they've recently found out the 400 kids that all of a sudden that they were missing, and now they've found these things, and a couple of them lost their
Where
lives.
are those 400 kids? Have they found the 400 kids?
No, but they found out the findings of what happened to them. That's how they got sex trafficked.
Well, they
And
probably
now
got put on container ships and shipped overseas.
exactly. And but
It's
the
really
department was
sad.
saying
The
it was
container
satisfactorily
ship,
resolved.
yeah, the container ships. There's no really, um, how can you say it? I live on the coast, not far from the port of Long Beach and the port of LA. In construction, I've done a lot of work
Mhm.
to the areas that provide the containers. I remember the
Yep.
cranes coming
Where
from China and
where
how
they
they stay
stack them
down
up
there.
on top of each other.
But what they do is they come into the facility. They're not X-rayed. They're not looked at,
Mhm. Nope.
and they're
Into
loaded
the
up by the
ports.
cranes right to the ship.
Yep. It's
And
just like
you
that
know
ship that
they
hit
may have
that
a
bridge.
manifest for what's in there, but you don't know how accurate the manifest is.
No.
And then those
And
those poor individuals are in those containers with very little air,
right.
no hygiene, and maybe a little food. I don't know how they. I mean, I don't know the details, but
But
then they're shipped
you're
over
probably
as soon
correct.
as they get to China.
Definitely.
The guy that got that container, if they have passports or drivers, they take them. And so you're in another country without your identification. You're helpless. You're helpless.
And this is a a thought, and it's been a fear of mine when the facility my son's in. What if, and I read in Texas that there was a facility out there. I'm not sure if it was where my son is now, but they had a couple years back. They had caught employees trafficking these children in out of this facility. So I mean, and then they just busted a home here in Georgia near my home county, my hometown, that was trafficking, human trafficking. So I mean, it's can go on anywhere. Like, and it's sad that a person could do that, and it's these people that are working when they're supposed to be all about reunifying and keeping families together and helping, and that's what really Department of Health, they're supposed to be helping families stay, I mean, getting them back up to where they need to be, offering them the services that they're struggling in, like getting them back up to where they can, when they're failing and and that's what I was told at the beginning of my case, like that they're gonna, they're supposed to help where you're weak at, and that's, no, they make you even more weak, and then it bounces out into other areas of your life until your life is totally unmanageable. And it's like
Right.
and that's what sucks. And like, you're right about low income poverty families that are struggling already, and we shouldn't lose our kids over a paycheck, that we have to live paycheck to paycheck, or it shouldn't be about money or a simple addiction like a substance, just maybe a relapse or something like that. You
Right.
shouldn't lose your kids. I mean, they should offer services for that, and I mean, which they
Right.
do, but they don't hold to it. They do not hold to
Okay,
it.
Danielle, I need to finish my three rules. Got
Oh,
to
go
get
ahead.
them in
Go ahead.
before the show time's off. So I'll continue with rule number one, which is attorney. And I tell people that getting an attorney is like if you have something wrong with your heart and you need a heart surgery, like you need a new valve or a stent or something put in your heart,
Right.
are you going to have a lay person do that with you? Are you going to have yourself try to do it? No, you
No.
get a professional doctor. And that's
Person
what I
that
said
studied
about
it.
attorney. Working with CPS is like open heart surgery. They're very tricky. They're not transparent. You go through a lot of unanswered doors, and you get nowhere with them. They're very, very hard, and they expect you to know everything, and you don't know all the laws. You don't know your civil
Right.
rights, your constitution rights. You don't know your amendment rights. There's so many things you have to learn. It's
A
available.
lot.
You can learn them all, but it takes time. And most
Right.
parents are caught off guard at the beginning. So as I
Right.
tell them, is that as soon as they're contacted by CPS, and one way I tell them is when you talk to CPS workers, say very little to them, just do yes, no answers, be courteous, but also inform them
It's almost done.
that you want to talk to your attorney first. And you may not have one, but that's a good time for you to look into one. And so they don't know that, and they'll back off a little bit. So get their business card. I tell them, get their business card. Don't take their name and phone number. Get their business card with their name and phone number because they will lie.
Right.
That
Oh
way,
yeah.
it makes them looking like you respond. Like a lot of times, they'll come knock on the door. I tell you, do not answer the door. Well, eventually, they're going to come back and they'll leave their business
Mhm.
card. If they leave their business card, you call them very nicely. I want to acknowledge I received a business card from so and so, and then I'm speaking to my attorney first, and then we'll get back to you. Period.
Do you
You
ever
don't
tell?
give them
Are
your
they
phone
allowed to
number.
record everywhere, or
Card.
if they come out to your home, like say if they and they are if like
Well, I don't like
like
to have
aggressive?
interviews done in my home. I
Okay.
like to be done at their office.
Right. Right. And
Right. I like to be
what do
done
you
at
feel
their
about
office.
recording?
And I don't like to bring my children to their office.
Right. No.
And
No.
so if they want to interview me and talk to me, they can. If they want to visit my home, I'll first see if my attorney allows it.
Right.
Because there's
Right.
things that in your home you have to put away and not have out because they'll put more play into it.
Oh
And
yeah.
see,
Definitely.
so what I tell you is that you need to get that attorney. And right now, I tell people you have to find at least 10 family law attorneys
Yes.
that work with juveniles and work with family law. And
And
you want
ones
to
that
find
actually
them
will
in
fight.
your primary city and the next biggest city over. So, what's the next biggest city next to yours?
Atlanta.
Okay.
Atlanta.
So, what you do is you Google family law
Hmm.
attorneys in your city, which is, what was it?
Ackworth. Ackworth.
Atworth and
Uh-huh.
Atlanta. Atworth, Atlanta. And suddenly you're going to get maybe 20, 30, whatever.
Oh
You
yeah.
want to narrow it down to 10 attorneys. And from that 10 attorneys, you narrow your list down to 5.
Right.
And from the 5, you're going to make phone calls. And on the 5, you want to see if they have worked with CPS, fighting them
Right.
and gotten
Right.
kids back. Do they have references? Do they have clients you could call to see how good of an attorney they were? When you
Good
get that
reviews.
far with the phone calls, then you can talk about money. The thing is, if they talk about money right away,
You know they're
don't waste
right.
your time. Don't waste your
I've ran
time.
it. Right.
And
Right.
because it should not be a money thing. If it is, they're going to be too high for you anyway. You know, the
Right.
retainer may be 5, 10, 15,
And
20,000.
that's their main focus. Their main focus should be what they're practicing and the getting doing
Exactly. And how can it
not
help you?
money.
Also,
Right.
with that list of 5, you may find a pro bono one, which is
True.
nothing wrong with that. But then you
One
got to
that-
find the chemistry. Well, I have an attorney here that produces podcast, Vincent W. Davis. He will talk to you for 30 minutes for consultation for $60, 30 minutes.
Mhm.
And he'll tell you about the strategies and how you can get your children back. And it's well worth the 30 minutes you spend with them. Also, at the time, you may want to ask him about retaining him. He's a family law attorney. He's a trial attorney background, and he has won CPS cases. He's also sued CPS, and he sued both in state and in federal courts, and he's
And
won.
he deals with a nationwide, right? Like
Right,
all over
and
the U.S.
right, and he can go anywhere. He works out of Southern California, but he also works in Northern California or any of the other states. Like he was in Oklahoma a couple of weeks ago.
Oh
He was in
wow.
Northern California a week ago. So he can work anywhere, and he's one of the top ones around there. So he should be on your list of 5 to call. And
Okay.
and when you talk to him, make sure you tell him that Bob Pace sent you, and then he'll know that I've been reaching out. So it's call 888-888-6582. That's Mr. Davis. So that's my rule number 1. There's your attorney. You may like him, you may not. You can still go around there, but you need to get an attorney because the one you get at your first court hearing, the public defender is worthless. They have a caseload of 20 to 30 clients. They're not really well versed in family law, and they're friends of the court and friends of the social worker attorneys and the children's attorneys. And so it's really hard with that kind of arrangement. And I'm
Right.
telling people, you have to do what I mean, I sold my home to get my attorney. A lot of people don't have that. A lot of people don't own their own home. And a lot of
Right.
people are homeless, and it's a shame. And being homeless is not a crime.
No.
Being homeless is not a crime.
Shouldn't be
Being
held.
homeless may have circumstances that led you there. That
Right.
led you, unfortunately, laid off from a job. Unfortunately, family members, or maybe there was
And
drug abuse, or
life
maybe there was
happens, you know. And
some other things that happened. But that should not be a criteria to take your children away. If
right.
you feed your children, they have a warm place to stay, and if it's the car, and then you take them to school and stuff, then that should not be. They should try to help out families instead of taking the money they get from the federal government and put it in their own pockets, the
Right.
$20,000 per child. They should give
It's
the
like when they
money out
see a
to
kid,
families.
they see money.
Yeah, and
It's
see when my family when they investigated me and said, "Well, you're negligent with your children because you have your family's furniture and boxes in your house, and they can harm the children," which isn't the case because they were in extreme danger. The boxes and furniture were downstairs, and I was sorting them because I didn't have money to put them in storage because my family, my mom and dad, were dying, and they wanted me to displace their belongings. And so, with that being said, it was really hard to they should have said, well, here you go, Mr. Pace. Here's $1,000 to go towards getting your storage. Put the things in storage, go through with it, and we'll help you out there. Because at that time, I'd lost my job, and through no fault of my own. I was 60 years old, and I had a really great, high-paying job, and I lost it. So
right.
I had my mortgage to deal with, and it was a pretty expensive mortgage because I had a really expensive house. And so, unfortunately, I didn't have money. I didn't think about an attorney. I should have, but I didn't. And so I'm telling all you listeners out there, call Mr. Davis. He will help you. Call in at 888 888 6582 and tell them that Bob Pace sent you. And when you speak to Mr. Davis, tell him that Bob Pace sent you. So you need an attorney to fight it. You're not going to win your case. You
No.
can sit there and maybe for years, but you have to keep going and going at it. And it's really hard. And it is really hard to
Right.
make that decision. Now, rule number 2, we talked about it briefly, was where you take a notebook and you keep track of things. All of us, we suddenly have an incident that happens, and it may hit us pretty hard. And we say, well, we'll remember it. Well, you don't. My mistake was I should have got a notebook, and day one when I had the incident, I should have wrote down the date and the time and the people involved, the social workers or the parents or the children or whatnot, the police. Then after that, you write 1 or 2 sentences what the incident was about. And then after that, you write 1 or 2 sentences about the outcome. It was solved or was not solved, and you may have to come back later to fill it in. Then skip a couple lines, do the next incident, and the next incident. You may want to put tabs in your notebook and have maybe 1/3 tracking all the classes you're taking, all the programs you're taking. Another
Mm-hmm.
tab could be info, like the info you'll find on the internet, the websites and stuff like that. So, you can have it divided into
Right.
3 tabs if you want. But you want to have a book,
Mm-hmm.
that's
I got a big
dedicated
notebook.
to the case. And that is the number 2 rule for me. And then the number 3 rule is the one that when you talk to social workers, you don't want to sit there and gab to them and tell them about everything because they'll use it against you.
Mm-mm.
It's a yes no
Right.
answer. You be courteous to them, but you do not give them any more information you have to. And if it starts to get kind of sticky, my rule is take their business card, say you need to talk to your attorney, and we'll get back to you. And you can get back to them. And if they leave a card at your door, then you call them and tell them you got the card and that you're going to talk it over with your attorney. You'll get back to you. Same thing goes for policemen. You do not have to let social workers in the home, and you don't have to let policemen. If the door is open, they try to put their foot in there. That's where it gets kind of tricky. And they think they can do that. Unless they have a warrant, they can't enter your home. And a warrant is a legal document signed by a judge that says what they are going to do. They're going to search the home. They have to have the allegations on there, the name of the person that they're talking to, the address, and the day and time they're going to do the visit. All that's got to be on the form. It's got to be a wet signature, and you should be able to read it. If you're in the home and you have a window near there, you tell them to put it up against the window so you can read it. Because the only time they come in the home is if there's danger going on. If there's a shooting going on, fisticuffs, fighting, knife going on, children being strangled or something, they can enter the home. But your home is your castle, and you don't need to let policemen or social workers. Furthermore, there's a thing called medical trafficking, and that's where your child gets sick in the middle of the night, heaven forbid, you take them to the emergency room, try to figure out what's wrong with them, and then maybe you disagree with the doctor that you want to see another doctor or your home doctor to do that. That's your right as a parent, but they don't. They have CPS workers that work in the hospital now as caseworkers. They'll take your child right at the hospital because you disagree with the doctor, and that's wrong. They have to have a court order. If you're having a birth of a child, they'll come in the middle after your birth and take your child. Still got with the birthing debris still around the child, and they'll take the child. They'll come in with a policeman. First of all, parents and policemen, CPS workers and policemen don't belong in a birthing room. They don't belong in a hospital room. They can wait out in the lobby. Is that? They always think, you see, the policemen think they have complete power. But they're bonded by rules too.
You're loud out there.
They're bounded by rules too. So I've talked about these 3 rules and kind of quickly, but I want to get them out because there's always new people that come into my room, and I want them to hear that. I do have a thing called ICWA, which is the Indian Child Welfare Act. And we don't have time to really talk about that. I have the 388 motion about getting a hearing date for your court. There's lots of things we can talk about in the future. So with you aboard, I hope that you can bring some things to talk about, and we can make it different every time. Mm-hmm. I do want to cover the 3 rules, and I want to help people if they have any questions. Tonight we had nobody on a Friday night, which is unusual because usually I have the room full of people. And tonight I just have seen maybe 1 or 2 people that have been checking in. So that's not.
I know I'll be getting.
It's very. I've been doing this for a long time, and it's variable. So.
Yeah, I'm gonna end up. I'm gonna be posting it like on my TikTok and sharing it out a lot too because I'm involved in some parenting groups on like Facebook and. Good. So I'll be spreading, and I've got some people. I was supposed to send the link to them yesterday, but or last night, and my power today ended up this weather. I don't know what happened. I think somebody hit a transformer out here, and it was great.
Oh, but are you gonna be able to be on my morning show? Are you gonna be on my morning show tomorrow? Good.
Yes.
Okay, 9:45. It starts at 10, but that's great. And then my evening show tomorrow night is at 7:00.
Okay.
Great.
And what time is it out there where you're at now? Is it 7, 8 o'clock?
Right now it's about 2 minutes of 8 o'clock. It's 7:58.
Okay. Yeah. It's 11 out in Georgia, so it's 11 p.m. out.
So are you 3 hours ahead of me or 2 hours ahead of me?
I think it's 3 hours ahead of you. 3 hours.
Right. Yeah. 3 hours. Right.
I might be 4 hours. Oh yeah. 3 hours. 3 hours.
3 hours, yeah.
If it's almost 8 o'clock,
Now, Sunday morning, I may be going to have to change the time to earlier time. I may want to do 8 o'clock Sunday morning Pacific time, which would be 8 to 9, it'd be 11 o'clock your time. I'm trying to get there's a podcast from 8 to 9, and normally, from 9 to 10, and they want me to not start to 10:30. Well, I have a very important commitment that happens at 10 o'clock anyway. So, and that involves my own son. And so I'm trying to move it to 8 o'clock. I'll talk to my producer, Grace, and see if that's okay to move it to 8 o'clock. There's nothing scheduled at that time on Sunday. But on Sunday, I'm by myself. So you have to make sure that you get the link to the show. Because on Sunday, Grace won't be there. Just me.
Okay. So I need to contact and get it each time.
So make sure you're set up.
What's your Sunday evening show? And then the evening
on
show.
Sunday,
what time do you
7 o'clock. 7 o'clock
Okay.
Sunday too. Yeah,
Okay.
pretty
So
much
it's okay.
it's
So
10 and 7, 10 and 7. But the difference is on this Sunday, I want to switch it to a more time of 8 in the morning instead of that 10:30. And I usually let people know ahead
okay.
of time if I'm
And s-
changing the time. But I want to thank you very
okay.
much for helping me out. You were a tremendous help. It's good to have you.
Okay.
Our time is up, so
And
I'm going to say good
okay.
night to everyone. Good luck. Keep trying for your case. God bless
Good night,
you.
everyone.
And yeah, this is Bob Pace and Danielle Vault signing off.
Wow.